All right, welcome to the pilot episode of the 30-Minute Drill, the podcast where we sit down with some of the world's most influential professionals to uncover their career journeys, insights, and leadership lessons, all in just 30 minutes.
So today we have the privilege of interviewing Coach Paul Goldstein, a four-time NCAA champion, former ATP pro, and now the head coach of Stanford men's tennis. Coach, thank you so much for having us.
Kyle Logan, really appreciate you guys. Thank you for having me on. Excited to be here with you.
Well, Coach, as we get started, could you quickly tell us about your early years, where you grew up, and how you first got into tennis?
Yeah, so I grew up just outside of Washington, D.C. in Maryland, which was not really a hotbed for developing tennis players necessarily. I had two older brothers who used to beat up on me a lot, and so that sort of drove my competitive spirit, I think. They were both athletic. One of them played a little bit, some tennis, but not too much, and I just played all sports. Um, Up until I was I played all sports uh, getting started, and tennis was one of them. And for whatever reason, it just kind of stuck with me. I'll tell a quick story of how I really got into it. I was 10 years old. I was over at a buddy's house for just like a play date. I was 9 or 10 years old. And my friend's mom came running into the living room, was like, "Oh my goodness, I forgot that Jay has a tennis lesson. Paul, I'm so sorry. I wouldn't have asked you to or we wouldn't have had you come over if we had known. If I had remembered that he had this tennis lesson, would you mind just watching him for the lesson and we can continue the play date after?" I was like, "Yeah, of course." And so I went and watched him take this tennis lesson. And after his lesson, I hit with Jay on the court next door. And Jay's coach said, "Well, Paul, you're pretty good. You want to start taking some lessons?" And that's when I really started to get into it. The summer I was 10 years old. Instead of going to sort of a sports camp, I just went and played tennis all day, every day for like 5 hours a day. And that's when I really got into it.
That's a great story. After what's up, Zadie? After getting into tennis, you ultimately chose Stanford after a high school, pretty dominant career. When committing to a school like Stanford, did you commit there to leverage that education, later down the road, or were you mainly focused on the tennis aspect?
Yeah, so I felt really fortunate to have the opportunity to go to Stanford. When I was going through that process, um, it just felt like Stanford represented the place where you didn't have to sacrifice anything. You could pursue tennis or your athletic endeavor at your highest, pursue excellence in your athletic endeavor at the highest level, and you could continue to pursue your academics at the highest level. So it just felt like there was nothing uh, that you were sacrificing. And so that was my impression or perception, I should say, before I went out there for my first visit. When I went to a visit Stanford, the first time I'd ever been there, had a blast on the recruiting trip. I didn't take any more recruiting visits. I'm in a position now where I'm recruiting, student athletes, and I see how much they agonize over these decisions. And I felt very fortunate because I really didn't agonize over it. It was pretty clear to me, especially once I one had the opportunity from Coach Gould to be able to go there, and then two um, came out for a visit and saw it for myself. And so for me, it wasn't a challenging decision, but really what drove me is that combination of athletics and academics, and really feeling like I wasn't in a position where I had to sacrifice anything.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely seems like you made the right call as at your time there, you helped lead Stanford to four straight NCAA titles. That's something very few athletes can say. So, what do you think was the key to the team's success during those years?
Yeah, I was so blessed. Just had an absolute blast in my 4 years, both on and off the tennis court. Yeah, on the tennis court, my classmates and I, coming in as freshmen, became the first class in the history of collegiate tennis on the men's side to win four consecutive NCAA titles. And each year is different. I played for a man named Coach Gould, and when I took when I got the job and was asking him for advice and mentorship, the first thing he said to me is like, "Paul, first of all, your 4 years were kind of an anomaly in how magical they were, and that doesn't happen. And the other thing is, it's going to be tougher than that. And the other thing is, in my 38 years, all 38 years were different. And so my freshman year was quite special. I came in, and when you go into something for the first time and you don't have any expectations, and everything you do is new and novel, you just don't overthink everything. And that was my freshman year. The team was really quite motivated. Um, so it was my freshman year, and the year prior to me getting there, the team had lost in the finals of the NCAA championships. And the final match came down to basically all the other matches were done, and there was one set between a now teammate of mine and his opponent from USC. And my teammate, his name was Jeff, lost that set. And so SC won the national championship. And, it was really hard for Jeff, especially over that summer, because it comes down to one set and he didn't get it done. And he was a leader on the team. He came back, it was his junior year, my freshman year. And he's a wonderful guy. And everyone was just motivated the entire year to do this thing for Jeff. And we had a really great run. We went undefeated. And so that was my freshman year. My sophomore year, we struggled a little bit more as a team. It's funny. We made it to actually we saved. Let's see. We went into the NCAA tournament and fourth or fifth team in the country, and UCLA was number one and was undefeated going into NCAA's, including beating us 3 times in the regular season. And so we get to the semis to play University of Georgia at University of Georgia, and we save like 5 match points to make it to the finals. And we're playing UCLA in the finals, who we had lost to 3 times heading into the finals. Uh, and you play doubles first in college tennis, followed by singles. That doubles point is worth one, but is really important from a sort of momentum standpoint. And we went into that thinking, okay, we need to get the doubles point to have a chance here, and we lost the doubles point. And we went out in singles and just bang, 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 won 4 straight singles to win 4-1. And so that was quite magical at the end there, because we played a UCLA team who arguably was more talented, had gotten 3 wins over us during the course of that year, and we were able to come through when it mattered most. And so that felt really good. My junior year, there was more turnover in the team, but we got these 2 freshmen, Mike and Bob Bryan, who have gone on to be the winningest doubles team in the history of professional tennis. They came to school as a freshman that year, and incorporated them into the team. They were outstanding players, and so we ended up winning the national championship my junior year as well. And then my senior year was really special. The Bryans were back for their sophomore year. I was there for my senior year. We had a really strong team. Not only did the team over the course of my senior year go undefeated, but every dual match between 2 schools is 7 cumulative points. You can win 7-0, 6-1, 5-2, 4-3. And over the course of that entire season, our team surrendered 3 points as a team the whole season. So we outscored our opponents 173-3 over the course of that season. So statistically, by far the most dominant season in the history of college tennis. So that was just sort of the culmination of just a wonderful 4-year run. Had so much fun with my teammates. Was really fortunate to have a fair amount of success in the juniors, and then played professional tennis for 10 years. But my fondest memories on a tennis court are certainly winning national championships with my teammates in college.
That's a great story to tell. Now let's shift, to your professional career. You had a good run on the tour, cracked top 60 in singles, played all 4 Grand Slams. You beat Novak Djokovic. What was life like on the tour for you, and what was your biggest takeaway from that chapter?
Yeah. Well, it's I guess the first thing I'd say is, I started playing tennis when I was 8 or 9 years old, started taking it pretty seriously when I was 10. And I felt like along the way, I never skipped a step. Like I played, my first tournament was sort of a state tournament, and then local tournament, then a state tournament, then a sectional tournament, then national, then international, and then went to college. And so the next step in that evolution was playing professional tennis, and I devoted, quite amount of time over the course of 10, 12 years to that sport. And so the idea of challenging yourself at the absolute highest level was something that I was, um, felt like it was exciting and worth a worthwhile venture to give it a shot. My first year out on tour was really interesting. I, finished my college career and went out on tour, and I lost my first 5 matches as a professional. And I'm sort of thinking to myself, I might want to go do something else here. And then I go play a tournament and I win my first match. And there was such relief of winning my first match in that tournament that I just would played free the rest of that tournament and actually won the event. And then I was just sort of off and running. And it was much like my freshman year in college. My first year on tour was everywhere I went was the first time I'd been there. It was a new experience. I had come off of college tennis in which I was, had won a lot of matches, and I just didn't know any better. I was too naive to think that I just shouldn't keep on going and winning matches when I played my first year on tour. So I had some success early on. It's quite interesting. Your second year on tour, or sophomore year, is actually harder because one, you've been out on tour for a while, and so the book is out on you, and people kind of know how to play you. Two, you're going to a tournament for the second time. It's not the first time you've been there, so you have some expectations. And so that year was a lot harder. But I guess to get back to your question, some of my takeaways were one, uh, it was a really valuable experience to sort of challenge yourself to prepare to play at the highest level of something that you were passionate about. And then to get assessed basically every week on how you're stacking up against your peers was quite interesting. I mean, they literally put a number next to your name every Monday to tell you where you rank relative to your peers. There's no other endeavor or career like that. And so it just is highly, highly competitive, highly competitive. One of the interesting things about tennis is it's an individual sport. And so you're traveling, man, 30 some weeks a year, and you're really sort of out there on your own. And if you choose not to be friends with your competitors, it can get really lonely. So you get along really, I got along really well, especially with fellow Americans when you're traveling internationally. And I also really valued I competed on 6 continents. Without the sport of tennis, there's no way I would travel to any of those continents probably. And so the value in that experience of traveling around the world, getting perspectives of different cultures, even if you're there for a profession and playing tennis, you get a perspective on different cultures. That's one of my takeaways that was so important, so valuable. And then one of the most important couple days in my career was midway through my career. I had started on tour and done quite well, had some injuries and dropped a little bit in the rankings. I was making my way back, was healthy again, but was not having the kind of success I wanted. And I spent a few days with a sports psychologist named Jim Lair. Midway is about halfway, what turned out to be halfway through my career. And, I spent a couple days with him. I hadn't worked with a sports psychologist before because I was struggling mentally. Wasn't finding success, was doubting myself. And, one of the aspects of having this Stanford degree is you're always sort of wondering, should I go put that thing to work? Um, and when you're thinking other things, it's really hard to be successful when you're competing uh, competitively at the highest level. And so I sat down with Dr. Lair and told him what I was feeling going through the first day. And he uh, he said to me, "All right, Paul, I'm going to send you home with a homework assignment, and we're going to come back the next day and chat. Your homework assignment is to write down the 3 to 4, 5 things most important to you in your life that are outside of the sport of tennis. And then come back tomorrow and we'll talk about it." And so I went home, was thinking about it, and it was very sort of consistent for me. The most important things were people. And it was my parents who had made a ton of sacrifices for me as I'm sort of coming up through junior tennis and college tennis. And it was my brothers. I had 2 older brothers who were always very supportive of me, never, made me feel guilty about the attention that I was getting either from tennis or from my parents having to travel around the country, taking me to different places. It was my friends and the amount of, I think about the amount of like celebrations, birthday parties, gatherings that I missed because I was pursuing my tennis, and they always were incredibly supportive of me. And then I think about at that time I was engaged to my now wife, Abby, who was always very supportive of me. And I'm traveling 30 weeks a year. She's never making me feel guilty about being on the road. Um, she's never making me wanting to be the reason why I would retire. And so as we talked about it with Dr. Lair, it became very clear that the common theme or these most important things in my life, these people had made sacrifices so that I could pursue the thing that I was most passionate about. And what we discovered is that if I'm on the road, if I'm traveling, um, the only way to really honor the most important people in your life is to put your best energy investment into the thing that you're doing. So if I'm off in Tokyo or Copenhagen playing a tournament and I'm not putting my best energy investment, what a disservice it is to the people who in my life were important, who had made so many sacrifices for me along the way. And so it was a real eye-opening moment for me. It was an epiphany, and it really became my why. Like, why am I doing this thing? And it was to honor the people who were most important to me, who had sacrificed for me. And I played for another 5 years, and my motivation over the next 5 years was almost always at its highest because I had found my why. And so that was a really, really valuable and important sort of time for me.
Yeah, I mean, that's such a cool and unique experience that not many people get to go through. So, after retiring from tennis and getting your degree in human biology, you spent some time in consulting and clean energy. Did you have any idea that you'd eventually return to tennis and let alone coach at your alma mater?
I didn't. I didn't. When I stopped playing professionally is when my Abby and I started a family, and so I stopped traveling a little bit. And I had always, one of the things about Stanford is you pursue your athletics at the highest level, but you also pursue academics at a high level, and you're surrounded by people who are changing the world. And so I was always interested in trying things outside of the sport, and I feel like my Stanford experience gave me that opportunity. Here I am, 10 years removed from graduating from college, and my only uh, professional experience was chasing the yellow ball around a 72-foot court, and yet because of the Stanford experience, I had options outside the sport. So I was excited to see what that would be like. And I worked not in consulting, but at a clean energy company for about 7 years, and I was very happy doing it. And I had, always kept in touch with the tennis world a little bit of coaching, served on some committees, but was not, interested in doing anything full time and even had some opportunities to coach on the professional tour. But that wasn't interesting to me because, one of the reasons I stopped playing myself was to be not traveling quite as much. And, coaching on tour would have been right back to traveling. And really the only thing that would get me interested in getting back into tennis full time was the opportunity to coach at my alma mater, which is what you sort of mentioned, Logan. And that's just a real special, unique experience. And when that opportunity presented itself, it was just hard not to throw my hat in the ring. I played for a man named Dick Gould, who was the head coach at Stanford for 38 years. He had a longtime assistant, 17-year assistant, who, when Coach Gould retired, sort of took over, and he coached the team for 10 years. And so when he retired, it was the first time the job had become available in 48 years. And so I sort of thought to myself, well, if I'm going to do it, it's either now or it's never going to happen. And so might as well throw my hat in the ring. Um, and someone made the mistake of pulling my hat out of that hat, excuse me, my name out of the hat. And it's been a real special run. This is my 11th season, and it's been real fun to be back um, on campus.
So you mentioned traveling, with the breakup of the Pac-12 and now Stanford joining the ACC. What has like that transition been like for you and for your team?
Well, it's a timely question because we've been on the road for the last 11, 12 days. I came home last night from Dallas where we played SMU. I have an event to go to tonight, and I'm getting on a plane tonight to go back to Boston to play Boston College tomorrow. And I'm flying back home from Boston to San Francisco tomorrow evening. So it is a lot of travel, but the most important thing to me in playing at a high level is the ACC is a really competitive conference. We are one of 5 teams in the conference ranked in the top 10 in the country right now. We have another team just in the conference outside of the top 10. So while we are traveling a little bit more than we used to, we're playing in the most competitive conference in the country, and our players who come to play against the best have that opportunity. And so that aspect has far outweighed the amount of travel that we're having to do. And some of our players, are motivated and excited about the possibility of playing professional tennis. And it's a good way to prepare for that because life on tour is a ton of travel.
So, when you're out recruiting, what else do you look for in a player besides just the ranking or rating? What characteristics make a recruit stand out to you?
Yeah, so at Stanford, which is a strong academic school, first and foremost, we're looking for the strongest tennis players, the strongest sort of athletes in our sport who are also pursuing academics at a high level. And so that's sort of the baseline for us. I'd say, in addition to that, the top characteristic that I look for is I'll tell a story of what I look for. And for a long time, I'd say 20 years ago, someone asked me the question, do you love to win or do you hate to lose? And I there's no wrong answer to that question. At some level, it's sort of the same thing. But for me, I was always more of a hate to lose guy because I felt like that was a little bit more of a motivating factor. And so for many years, I was a hate to lose guy. Uh, and I was watching an interview with Kobe Bryant before he passed, and someone asked him the same question, Kobe, do you love to win or do you hate to lose? And he looks at the interview and goes, nah, neither. And they're like, what do you mean? You've got to be one or the other. He's like, nah, there's a stronger motivating factor than loving to win or hating to lose. And that's loving to learn, loving to figure it out. And I heard that and it just popped for me right away, really resonated. And the reason I love that so much is I'm looking for people, young men. I just coach the men's team, young men who love to figure it out, love to try to get better, understand that you're not going to win every time out, especially in tennis. A Grand Slam is 128 players, and over 2 weeks, there's only one person at the end of those 128 that hasn't lost a match. And so, learning from experience, learning from failure is so important. And so I'd say the number one characteristic we look for outside of athletic competence and academic excellence, or athletic excellence and academic excellence, is the ability to learn from failure, the passion for loving to learn, the journey, the process, more so than the outcome.
Now we are going to shift into our fun question segment. It's a lightning round style, so
Let's
one or
go.
two word
I'm not the
answers only.
quickest thinker, so that I could struggle here.
All right. Favorite saying,
Hungry, humble, smart.
Would you say you're more of a morning person or a night owl?
Morning. Easy.
skill you wish you had.
The ability to see the world as it could be as opposed to how it is.
Hmm. What is the best college tennis environment?
Well, certainly a home match at Stanford would be my number one with a passionate crowd playing against a rival. That would be number one. I'd say number two is playing the University of Georgia at the University of Georgia in Athens.
Favorite movie.
Drama, glory, comedy, Fletch,
A best vacation spot?
Ellsworth, Maine.
Best restaurant in the Bay Area.
So many. Evia.
Nice. All right, that wraps up the 30-minute drill with Coach Paul Goldstein. Thank you again for your time, Coach. It was a pleasure having you on.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you.